John, have I told you I'm addicted to Carwell's auctions?
You might have mentioned it, yeah.
Well, they're online 6 days a week. They're getting 20,000 fresh vehicles in every month. It's actually one of my best sources of quality stock. Listings have got plenty of photos, service history, and background checks for peace of mind. And you can pay sellers in a click with Carwell Wallet. They even transport your car with built in protection of up to £25,000.
Well, that's more than you will ever need.
Exactly, John. So, dealers, if you're not on CarWow, you really should get in on the auction. See what I've done, John?
Oh, God.
Anyway, to find out more, sign up for free at carwow.co.uk/partners/auctions.
Welcome back to the Car Dealer Podcast, where we pick our favourite stories of the week and ask an industry guest to choose which were the best. I'm John Ray, and joining me this week in a room just through there is James Baggett. James.
Hello?
Hello. How are you?
Is this thing on? Hi, John. Nice to see you. This is strange, isn't it? I'm all out of sorts because in a very, very different location. We're currently in Auto Trader's head office, aren't we? But we've been put in the studio. Well, you've been put in the studio. For those people listening on Spotify, this will be no good. But if you're watching on YouTube, John's just through there. It looks like he's just about to go live in a studio on BBC Breakfast, but he's not.
No, it's slightly surreal because we've been let in but not allowed to use any of the equipment. So
not trusted. Not
still
trusted.
Quite our usual basic level of tech. But anyway, how are you, James?
I'm fine, John. Yeah, it's been interesting, hasn't it? Being up here in Manchester, we decided to come up at the same time as
Manchester.
No, I don't. Manchester. We decided to come up at the same time that some small band called Oasis seems to be doing something at the same time, which meant hotel prices had somewhat surged, didn't they?
They had, yeah. But on the upside, we did get a free gift. Shall I model it?
I think you should, yeah. It actually fits you perfectly. So for those people listening, John has put on what can only be described as a terrible hat that looks like he was once in the band Oasis.
It doesn't really fit, to be honest. I'm not a bucket hat person. I'm not really an Oasis fan.
Are you not? Well, you're in the wrong place. We've come up.
I know.
In the wrong place.
I can't say it too loudly, but I'm a bit more Blur.
Are you? Wow.
To be honest.
So yes, we've come up not just for the to look at the Oasis fans. We've come up just to have a little bit of a review of our account with Auto Trader, which we've done a little bit of this morning. We're going to be doing a little bit more of it after we've recorded this podcast. But it's been interesting to sort of get an idea of how things have been performing at Clever Car Collection, why things are working, and why some things are not working. Been an interesting morning, John.
Can I ask you something from last week that we didn't cover?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me your story about your Peugeot 208.
Oh, yes. The Peugeot 208. So this was quite frustrating. This was a customer who called me up. We sold a 208 GTI to a man in Wales. He called me up in a panic saying the engine has exploded, the cam belt has gone, I've taken it to a Peugeot dealer, they've told me the car is a write-off and it's all a disaster. Obviously, I was a little bit panicked at that point in time. Decided to get the car collected from Wales on a low loader. Had it brought all the way back to Gosport, which cost me £450 just to pick this car up, bring it back. Dropped it off at our mechanics, and with the thought that he's going to have to fit a new engine. So I thought, might as well find somebody I know to do it rather than someone in Wales who we don't know, hasn't worked with us before. So, brought it back. And the mechanic rang me on the Monday afternoon after it had been dropped off. And he said, "What did you say was wrong with this car?" I said, "Well, the engine's gone because the cam belt's gone." He said, "That's funny. I've just driven it around the car park." I said, "Okay, that's obviously not the cam belt." He said, "No, I've had a little look at it. It's just got an engine warning light on. I've swapped a few solenoids over, and the engine warning light disappeared. I've just driven it to Portsmouth and back quite fast, and it's been completely fixed." So I rang the customer back and said, do you remember you told me this car had cam belt gone and it was complete write-off? Oh, yeah, I might have said that, but yeah, I think it might have just had a slightly smaller problem than that. They go, why have you told me this? Why, this is the problem, isn't it? I mentioned this in my video last week, and quite a few people said you just basically didn't do a good enough job of triaging that complaint. They said, so maybe there's a lesson to be learned there, John.
I
Right.
don't quite know what that means, but
It's slightly frustrating, but anyway, it didn't cost me as much money as I thought it was going to be. So a small win.
I'll take it. Shall I introduce our guest?
Yeah,
Give it.
please do, because I'm waffling on now.
Yes. So joining us this week, appropriately enough for our location, is Head of Strategy and Insights at Auto Trader, Marc Palmer. Marc, lovely to have you.
Good morning, both. Lovely to be here. Thank you for having me on.
No problems. Thank you
Thank
for
you for
letting us
letting
in.
us in the building.
Yeah, thank you for letting us into your offices.
I didn't have anything to do with it. If I had,
We wouldn't be allowed
not at all. Red
anywhere
carpet.
near this equipment. Oh dear. So Mark, what's been? I've got lots of questions for you, but let's sort of start. Let's have a little look at what you guys have been seeing. I mean, we're 6 months into the year now, aren't we? How's the first half of the year been for people?
First off, it's a really funny picture. The first half of the year, actually, because it started really, really well for just used car sales in particular. New was all right actually in the first half of the year as well. First quarter of the year as well. New car sales went quite well. Second half has been really different. It depends what type of retailer you are. So we've seen. I mean, the top line, I suppose, is that sales are up 2%. Used car sales are up a couple of percent. Right, good news. That sort of hides a bit of a difference in there because sales by franchise retailers year on year are down slightly and independents are up like about 5%. So there's a real difference in the experiences of different types of retailers, which is sort of, I suppose, observation number one. We've almost got to this position where we've got a couple of different big themes emerging in the market. We always talk about the supply that didn't come into the market after the COVID pandemic thing. So that has flowed through now. It's washed through franchise retailers, 0 to 3, 4-year-old stock. That's coming back in. So franchise retailers will be seeing more stock than they have done for 5 years or so. That's slowing things down ever so slightly. The mix of that stock is really different. We can talk about this maybe later on, but the brands that are coming back in, the different shares, different types of volumes and things coming back in, different cars, loads of electric cars, that sort of stuff. So for franchise retailers, the market's different. Independence has been going really, really strongly. And that is the case there's obviously been that sourcing challenge, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old cars, which will be the case again for another couple of years. But when you get further out, and up towards 10 and 10 plus, then demand is up really strong, and speed of sales really, really good. So lots of different things. I'd like to be able to give you a nice simple answer, but actually there's possibly more complexity in the answer than we've seen for quite a while. New, just to touch on new sales, kind of flat. We think the rest of the year will be kind of flat as well. Private's been pretty difficult. It kind of really sort of sticky sort of time really for franchise retailers in that regard, which obviously they'll be sort of experiencing. It's not down; it's about flat year on year. Fleet up slightly, but yeah, a kind of a very, very mixed bag. I'd say a game of two halves, definitely. Certainly in the franchise sector.
There's lots I want to touch on, but can I just ask you a couple of questions about the EV market? And we will definitely come on to this as part of the story. So I sort of want to part the grants, etc., and leave that for our stories in a moment. But what are you seeing in terms of EV demand? Because just on our very small business, whenever we're checking for retail checking cars, especially at our price point, small EVs. They often don't retail check very high. But when we've had one in stock, we've sold it really quickly. So can you just sort of explain the dynamics that is going on specifically for the smaller, cheaper used EVs?
Yeah, there won't be one. Again, there won't be one experience for all of them. The EV market, used EV market, is still really early on. It feels like it's really early on. It's difficult to kind of say with a certainty that this will do that and that will do that, because of course we only really started to see volumes, certainly of small EVs. I mean, if we take Zoe and Leaf out of the conversation for a minute, they've obviously been around for ages, 10 years or more. Everything else, all those other smaller, cheaper EVs have kind of just only come on really the last sort of 3 or 4 years. So what the response is going to be like and how they're going to perform in the market, they're still sort of settling down and finding their level. At a general market level, EV demand is up around 30%. So, and you'd expect that as supply comes in and there's more new cars on the road and there's more charging infrastructure and all that stuff we'll talk about later on. So generally, EV demand is up, supply is also up. There's a little bit, there's a bit good, reasonable balance there. Speed of sale is pretty good, but it does differ, as you say, by the type of car that you've got. Whether they're smaller ones or bigger ones. Sometimes you've got this experience where, if we go back like 3 years, a new car is introduced. There's a run of registrations. There'll be demos. There'll be lease cars. There'll be PCP cars. All that sort of stuff. And a lot of those cars will come back into the market at roughly the same sort of time. So you get this sort of lumpy effect for some models that isn't quite smoothed out in the way that we're used to on petrol and diesel cars.
What do you think of the way that used car dealers are stocking EVs at the moment? Do you think the general used car dealers out there are prepared for this change that we're seeing? I mean, I would say that we really aren't. At Clever Car Collection, like we sort of find our feet with it, and we've been using this product called Generational, where you can plug it in and work out the battery health and stuff. But I mean, that feels very new, and the only reason that we're doing it is because of our link with Car Dealer Magazine. That we even heard about it. Do you think other dealers out there are set up and ready to capitalize on these buyers that are out there?
Some are and some not, I suppose, and it depends really on. I mean, there's a few different reasons why they might not be. There's some who kind of just think, like, I don't stock that kind of car. I don't stock cars that are that young, of that value. Generally, I'd say you've got quite a mixed picture. There are some brilliant examples of retailers who got onto the battery health certification pretty quickly. They realised that it was a question they were being asked by potential buyers quite a lot. What's going on with the battery of this car? They just think, right, well, if I get it certified, tested and certified, just as you've done, then that immediately allays that sort of concern for the buyer. So there's a thing there. Some retailers are doing a great job. There's loads of providers out there that are able to help out, and some of them have got a really consistent approach, the retailers, to that. Then you've also got retailers who are kind of using all of the tools. I can only really speak for what we do with retailers, of course. I was at a performance clinic last week, and there was a load of retailers in the room, and the conversation is very much around what questions are we being asked, what sort of answers should we be giving when people speak to us about, what about fire safety, what about range, what about batteries, what about this, and what about charge time, that sort of thing. And all of those, I think what you've got is some retailers who are going, right, well, I know these cars are coming along and it's only going to be a year or two before that is a really big chunk of the available supply. And what they're doing is they're going after the answers to the questions. We've got modules on our Insight Academy, and we've got materials to try to help retailers to figure out the answers and so on. And other retailers thinking, well, look, that's not for me. And they might have heard some stories about, maybe, someone else, a peer somewhere else, bought a car in, couldn't turn it, took a loss on it. So it's still quite a lot, I think, for retailers to figure out. Last thing I say, it's really hard, right? Because I've worked at manufacturers for a really long time, and often when you launch a new car and you do your sales training, you train your new car sales team. Really, really rare that a used car salesperson comes along if you've got split teams at a franchise retailer. The used car people just don't get the same level of product training. And of course, those cars now, the used market is having to absorb them to sustain them. This is independent retailers out there that haven't had any product training, haven't had any training on the consumer questions. Battery degradation, what does that mean? How do I answer that question? How do I test for it? Charging, different thing. Previously it's all been so much easier. So I'm not sure that the manufacturers, I would encourage, we're speaking to a couple of manufacturers about this actually, thinking very differently about how you help the wider used market, because it needs something different from them. They need to get more information into retailers, help them out with the product, I think is a really good first step. So yeah, mixed bag, James, in answer to your question. but there are some great examples.
Yeah, and in terms of your predictions of the speed of change of the makeup of car dealer forecourts, if I take mine at the moment, we've got 20 cars in stock. Not one of them is an EV. I mean, okay, that's our problem because we haven't actually bought any. But I would hazard a guess there are lots of dealers out there, used car dealers out there that haven't got any EVs at all. But when you look at last month's sales, 25% of them were EVs. I mean, this year we'll probably hit close to that 25%. That's a quarter of all new cars sold this year are going to be EVs. How quickly do you see that change for used car forecourts? When do we reach the tipping point when there's more EVs on forecourts than there are petrol and diesels?
Yeah, it's probably, I think we're looking at, for that 50% tipping point, we're looking at another 10 years, I would guess, at the rate of change that we're going at the moment, of course. But that obviously changes by age cohort. If we hit 25% sales this year, then in 3 years' time, 25% of the available 3-year-old cars will be electric. And that's been building, hasn't it, for a few years. So I would, in the next 5 years, it could be the case that 1 in 5 used cars around is electric of sort of all age cohorts. So it's coming pretty quickly, and if you as you say, you've got 20 cars, then very quickly you start to see it build up to a quarter of your available supply. 1 in 4 of the cars that you've got to sell, if you're looking at 5-6-year-old cars, is an electric car. So it won't be that long. It'd be a couple of years. Maybe we talking yesterday actually, that for retailers, if you don't stock one now, if it's not your thing, or if you're not sure, that's absolutely fine. But I would say start thinking about it. What am I going to do in a year's time or 2 years' time if that's a quarter or a third of what's available?
Mark, we talked about the fact that you were going to be on the podcast last week. I've had quite a few messages from dealers with questions for you. So forgive me, I've got quite a few that I've promised to ask other people on their behalf. I mean, I'll start with AI. I mean, Auto Trader's really delved into that. You've got Copilot. It helps with the adverts. It helps with the pictures. What was the reason behind rolling that out for all dealers and not charging for it as a separate product?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, I mean, first thing to say is we don't do these things. We don't just kind of sit and go, right, what do we think we should do, without speaking to retailers and consulting with retailers. So we spent a long time. We do this with every product or decision that we make, and we spent a long time with retailers talking about what pain points there were, what inefficiencies there were, and what kind of solutions do we think we could find. Now, we already, of course, had things like taxonomy, a load of data in place, and tools to kind of to feed Co-Driver. And the aim of it really was to kind of go, right, we can see and hear from talking to retailers where there are those pain points, and what can we do to try to help streamline a lot of the daily tasks. I mean, you're obviously a big advocate of AI, and what we think is AI can be used to do things that it's going to be really good at, and leave people to have more time to do things they're really good at. That's the outcome we'd really want. So that, the point of it really is, can we use it to take a lot of time out of the retailer effort? Can we help with accuracy? And can we help retailers spend more time and adding value? And that can be around improving descriptions. Like, the descriptions are kind of generated, but as a retailer, you can improve those and make them really rich and really tailored to you, and spend your time doing that bit rather than all the spec and the kind of, the kind of grimbly sort of thing. You could use the time saved to think about what to buy. We just talked about different types of cars there, brands or fuel types or whatever, to investigate that, spend the time there. Could be training, could be thinking about pricing strategy, lots of different things. So really, the purpose of it is to see if we can use technology to take out, I suppose, the admin. And I know that a lot of retailers really enjoy the descriptions, but like the basics of it, the tech, the spec, the description, get that in place, 60, 70, 80%, and then change the rest and really sell your services, spend the time selling your services rather than the basics of the product. That's the reason, really. But definitely always done in consultation with retailer partners.
Do you think the AI descriptions are better than those created by humans?
Generally, no. I think they raise the standard. I think in the fundamentals of the description of the car, definitely they raised the standard. We did, and again, that's another thing. There's a load of testing to go right. What does it say? Because of course, it's funny, isn't it? You read about AIs from very famous global tech companies, and their AI says all sorts of weird stuff. Clearly, we do an awful lot of testing to make sure that the descriptions are good and solid. So in some cases, yeah, the AI will give a better description. I mean, what the idea is that it gives a really solid description, but then retailers who have got loads of experience can add in the great stuff around it to sell. Those ones will be better. That's the best case. AI co-driver does the core. Retailers then do the really good stuff.
I mean, you do sort of scroll through Auto Trader every now and again. You see some adverts where it just says, black Volvo, 6,750 or near offer. And you think, well, they're the ones where it's probably going to help out. What about the pictures? What have you learned from AI? Because it's learning how consumers are looking at and interacting with these pictures regularly and every single day on a huge scale. What have you seen? What can you tell me about those pictures that consumers are looking at that they really like? What can we take more of as retailers?
It's difficult, really, because as you'd imagine, it varies by sort of car, and it changes all the time. So it would be, I suppose, I'd be second guessing the machine if I sort of sat and said, "Oh, we've learned this thing." It's learning faster than I can describe to you what it's doing and what it recommends. So so it'd be really dangerous of me to say, "Oh, we found at this angle, and if you get a purple car, it goes really, really well." That would not make any sense. So I think that, and I don't know, just to be sort of really noddy about it. The amount of data that goes into it and the speed with which it's learning means that what is shown will be changing all the time. I think that top line, the fundamentals of it haven't changed too much in that, we do know that certain numbers of pictures perform really, really well. You need certain types of pictures, all the stuff that we've been saying previously. It's more the order of that we're constantly learning from and changing. And I think the basics, like if there were really big trends, they'll start to emerge over the next few months. We need to do a bit more learning on it.
I just sometimes look at the way it reorders up the pictures. I sort of have a in my mind how I think consumers look at a car, a bit of exterior, maybe a little bit of interior, then back to the exterior. And then you put it through Copilot and it does something completely different. And I'm thinking, does it really know better than me? I mean, that's the thing that I constantly ask, and I find it hard to trust. I find it hard to let it go, well, actually, no, you reorder my pictures that I've spent an hour taking. So what would you say to people like me, when it comes to those sort of decisions? Just let AI do it.
We're all the same, aren't we? You don't know, actually, because we've all been trained to think that you need these pictures from this angle in this order, that picture is going to be the one that catches the eye first. And everybody, it feels to me like it's trained behavior. I remember being at manufacturers and we had the same thing. We'd do brochures and websites and whatever. And the picture was always taken in a place near Malaga. You'd slightly water the top of the mountain, the flat mountain, so it looked a bit shimmery and shiny. And every manufacturer took their car to the same place and they'd line them up in the same way on a sunny day with blue sky. John, you've probably been there, actually. And you'd water it slightly and all that business. And you think, right, brilliant, we've cracked it. But of course, your website ends up looking exactly the same as everybody else's. And was it better anyway in the first place? So I think we probably train ourselves a little bit to do that. So, yeah, I do think on this one, trust the machine. We've got a lot of people visiting the site, 509 million visits in the first half of the year. And I hate to say it, but the machine probably in this case does know
does know better. It's quite painful, quite hard to actually do it and let it go.
Really is.
What's next then for AI with Auto Trader? And are you confident what comes next? Dealers are really going to want.
Yeah, so I think the next thing and the conversation that we're having at the moment is around the learning that we're doing on consumer behaviour on the platform. We've talked about this, I suppose, last few years actually, about how much we use AI. The data scientists in the business have got more than 10 years working with it, and a lot of that. Or most of it, nearly all of it actually, has been directed towards what we know about the vehicle, about the market, about what's going to happen, all the tools that you'll be used to using. Where the effort is now in terms of our learning is people. What is it that buyers are doing on the platform? What can we derive from that? What can we learn? And what does it tell us about what they're likely to do next, how likely they are to buy a car? So, we've obviously we've had Deal Builder on the platform for a couple of years. That is really helping us learn about what buyers are doing, how they move between cars, how they cross shop, what they want to do and when, and really give us a picture of what their sort of propensity is to do the next thing. And that's the next big field for us is getting all of those millions of data points every day, all the things that people are doing, packaging it up in such a way as to say, and of which Deal Builder is a part, within there, that often happens out of hours and all sorts of things, and really building a quality picture of the buyer. Because the vehicle is one half of it, of course, and we've been really good at that. The buyer, I think, in the automotive sector is not very well understood. Not really, not in terms of the scale it could be and the depth and richness it could be. That's the area I think that really is exciting.
I'm glad you brought up Deal Builder because it's another thing that some of the dealers I've spoken to, I mean, I would say I'm not particularly happy with. And you probably have these conversations far more than I do. But do you think that Deal Builder needs more refining before it's really successful? I mean, for example, one dealer told me that off the Deal Builder product, they probably convert 1 in 20. When really it should be, they say, 9 in 10 should be the ones that actually convert, because these are customers should be with intent, shouldn't it? These are people that are putting a £99 deposit down on a car. But what some people are finding is they're doing that across multiple cars just to take them out of the market. How's Auto Trader going to refine this product so it really works?
That's an interesting. I mean, I haven't heard that or that level of. I mean, there are obviously going to be sort of cases.
I mean, that's one example. That's one example. But I would be amiss if I didn't present it to you.
No, absolutely, and hopefully there'll be someone over there going, "Well, look, I've converted every single lead that I've had, and it's been brilliant." And I'm sitting, just watching it come in. It's the truth, and obviously the truth will be somewhere in between the two. So where we get to with the Deal Builder, when we look at it across the piece, I suppose the objective of it, and what we find is as we scale it up, is that broadly inquiries are of better quality for retailers. We've got, and again, the general experience, more qualified people, which is giving retailers more control over what to do next. We've talked a bit about, and quite a bit about, how it's better for the buyer. They get to do things in their own time and in different ways and take it as far as they want and all that kind of thing. Of course, for buyers, that's a choice. They don't have to use it. No one's been forced to go through a certain process. They can just do whatever they want. But the key thing is, for retailers, is when that inquiry comes along, that is then the quality of it is what's important. And I think that's what we're continuing to refine. We are obviously always looking at the product, trying to make sure that it performs really, really well for our retailers and that the quality of what they receive is better and give them more control over what to do next. That's the objective. It's by no means kind of finished. We're constantly iterating, as we are with Co-Driver, Deal Builder, the platform, everything, the tech, looking at it, how can we improve it? Because the best outcomes for us, if it works for the consumer, then it should work for the retailer. And that's really the key objective.
Mark, you will hear this far more than I do, and I hear it a lot. People in the trade will say Auto Trader is expensive. That is their go-to thing. If you say, "What do you think of Auto Trader?" they say it's too expensive. Is their first thing out of their mouths. I look at it slightly differently, and I've talked about this on this podcast before. I look at it on a cost per sale basis. I will always analyse all of our different marketing channels, and I want to know on a cost per sale basis. So I actually think it works out pretty good value, and I'm not just saying that because I'm sat in your offices. I'm saying that because I genuinely believe it.
The doors are locked, by the way, James.
Yes, yeah. We can't get out. But what do you say to your customers when they come to you and say it's too expensive? What do you say to them when you have to go and justify another 7-8% price hike? Because it is painful for dealers, and I do get why they get upset. But what's your take on it? What do you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, and I guess the thing for us is we do think really hard, and it's interesting. So I've listened to the podcast last week actually, and Theo raised a bunch of really good points. And I remember one of them was you asked what tell us about Auto Trader. What does he feel? And he said they don't listen. He said they don't listen, do they? And I sort of I've been here for a while, and I felt a bit upset by it, because we try to really engage with retailers and understand the perspective. We don't want to be sort of sitting here and telling them how the market is when they've got a different experience. That is absolutely not what we want to do. So the thing for us is trying to balance the products that we bring into market, the investment that we're making in things like marketing, and people, and all of the tech to provide a safe marketplace for buyers and sellers that delivers great results, and to try to get that balance right. And ultimately, we're aiming to try to keep moving things forward and to try to deliver growth for retailers, an easy, good buying experience for buyers, and then growth for us. I think the other point I make is, the kind of the point about whether or not we deliver value. We are we're a marketplace that's there to help retailers sell cars, and we would hope that retailers see value in us, as you've just described, and choose to continue partnering with us. We've got more retailers doing that than we did a year ago, and we would always want to deliver something that helps retailers reduce pain points, help them sell more cars, make more money, as a justification for those price increases. That's kind of, that's the kind of answer. It's the answer that you would expect me to give, but honestly, a load of thought, so much thought goes into it, trying to deliver value. And we do that in consultation with retailers as we start to consider, what it is we want to be doing.
One of the things that I picked up with Catherine when I spoke to her after the results, after Auto Trader's results, was this point about logos being removed from dealer adverts. I'd just like to touch on that, because when I said that I was going to be doing this interview, that is the thing that comes up a lot. I think there's a lot of dealers out there that have invested a lot in their own brands, and they want consumers to, especially local consumers, to know that they're buying from their business, but yet Auto Trader's taken that away. Can you just explain the sort of thinking behind that to our listeners?
Yeah, definitely. Probably a couple of things. The first thing to say is that logos only existed on desktop, and not on the mobile web or on apps. And actually, now desktop only accounts for 20% of advert views. So when we talk about, when we think about removing the logos, that's on the maximum of sort of 20% of ad views. Like a minority of performance, 4 in 5 ad views are not going to see a dealer logo anyway, retailer logo anyway. Second thing to that, we do a load of consumer testing. What we do is we bring buyers into the office that we're all in now, and we take them through, different journeys, different designs. We found that retailer information is really important. This is absolutely not about whether retailer brands are not important. They really are. And loads of retailers have built brilliant businesses and brilliant local brands. It's not about, trying to diminish that in any way at all, actually. What we do is we try to put it in the place in which it counts the most, because those buyers, we do the eye tracking test. We go, right, they're on the phone and so on, where'd you go? Or they're on the desktop, where'd you go? And what they do is they locate the car first, and then they go and start to look at retailer information. They find the car they like, and then they start to look at things like, the retailer's product page, or the product page where the retailer information is, what the reviews say. And that's the point at which it becomes really, really important. That's where retailers really sell their brand, their business, their services. Last thing to say on it as well is that we did test it for 3 months. So it wasn't like we kind of went, got half a dozen people in and said, have a look at this and we'll track your eyes and so on, and right, off we go. We tested it on a 3-month period, and quite quickly we found that the design made a positive impact on people's. It kind of told us over 3 months, when we were looking at a subset of cars on the platform, what we expected to see from the studio testing. So I completely get it. It's not like it's been removed. It was on a small part anyway, but the big place where it really makes a difference is on the product page, and that's absolutely still there.
So in that respect, how do car dealers mark themselves apart from the competition? If they were that worried about their brand and that's been taken away on that search, and I get it, it's only a small part of it. Yeah. How do they stand out?
Yeah, I think the main thing is it's back to that point. So in all the testing we've done, people find the car first, and then, do I want to buy from this seller? Now, there will be, of course, and again, I picked this up from your interview last week. it's probably the case that a lot of the local custom, a lot of Theo's customers will probably go onto platforms like ours, look at a load of cars, and then think, right, what can I get for the budget that I've got? What kind of thing can I get? And then they'll probably go to Theo's anyway. They might not ring him up. They might not do Deal Builder. They might not, given the type of customers that he's got, they might just go, I'm going around there anyway because I know him. I bought cars from him before. I just wanted to check and see what sort of thing you can get within my budget. That will obviously still happen. The key thing there is whether they're going to walk in without making contact. And by the way, more than half of all visitors to showrooms don't make any contact with retailers. They do a load of research online and then they just turn up. But the key thing there is, how do you make people turn up and how do you make sure they come to you? Well, first of all, the car. In all the research we've done over all the years, buyers buy car first. There'll be outliers, of course, but broadly, people buy, they do their research, they choose their car, and then they say, right, can I buy it? Do I want to buy it from this retailer? That's the key thing there. So if you're a retailer, making sure that yours is the car that people choose through all the merchandising and through adjusting your description, the co-driver description, to make your dealership the one. In the product page, really, really sell your services. Take the time, actually, maybe that you saved on your description, to really sell your brand on the product page. That's the sort of order of things that we see people doing. So just invest the time differently. You've still got the same opportunity with the same number of people to sell your business, absolutely. And just, I suppose, a redeployment of time is how I do it. But key thing, get the car right, and the rest will come.
Were you surprised at how much of a kind of, I say backlash, but I'm only using that because it's the only thing that I can think of. But how much of a backlash there was for just removing logos from these things? I mean, do sometimes when you make a change to the product, do you think, oh blimey, I didn't realise that was going to cause quite the problem it did?
I don't think so. I don't think so. No, because you've got really brilliant local family businesses and brands that people have invested a lot of time in, and with they absolutely should be really proud of what's been built and the brands that they've built, especially smaller local businesses, I think, and the role they play in communities and so on. They're more than just car retailers in many cases, aren't they? So absolutely. I mean, it's a really emotive sort of subject, and it should be, because it's important. I think and you don't take that sort of thing lightly. It really isn't about trying to diminish that, as I mentioned earlier on, at all. That's really important. Well, I guess it's putting it in the right place for when it's right for the customer. And if it might, what we found was essentially that when there were too logoed, there were people who weren't clicking on them. They weren't clicking on the cars because there are too many logos. So it's about getting that balance right. But no, not surprised at all. It's difficult. It's a difficult conversation to have, though, of course, because I'm sitting here. I don't have one of those local businesses and local brands, and I tend to talk about data and boring stuff like that. But we're talking about businesses that people have invested decades in, that might be family businesses that have gone back generations. So completely get it. It's a really different conversation.
It's probably worth touching on the sort of search, and we will get onto some stories in a moment. But I'm fascinated to have this chat with you, and I think it's worth us just talking in a little bit more detail about some of these things. Let's talk a little bit about search, because it's something that you look at very carefully. Give me an idea of how a consumer, what they do on the site when it comes to finding a car. Do they, like in my mind, I think they go, right, I want a Skoda Yeti. I'm going to find a Skoda Yeti, plug that in. I want it to be roughly that age, and this is my budget. That's how I think it works. But you have much better insight than I do. Where do they start? Do they start on a like the local area? Do they start on a card? Do they start on a budget? I mean, what is it?
Yeah, all of it. I'm not the expert on
All
this.
of it.
Yeah, you'll meet people today probably. It'll give you much better. In terms of Auto Trader and the data, they'll give you some really good pointers on that. But I can tell you what people know when they go through the process. Only 1 in 10 people know the exact make and model that they plan to buy.
Really?
9 in 10 people, yeah. So about everybody's sort of got a budget in mind.
Yeah.
Most people, about sort of 50% of people rather, so most people know their budget. About half of people have got a few makes and models in mind. They kind of know roughly the type of car that they want. I'd like a Golf but a bit bigger, or I'd like a a Kia Sportage, only a bit cheaper. Those sorts of, that's all that's in their heads. Only 1 in 10 people know exactly the type of thing, the make and model that they want. So coming onto the platform, you'll get people saying, you get a bunch of people just come on and go, show me all the cars. And then they'll use the filters to go through and they'll go, right, okay, I can afford roughly this much. Show me. And then they'll go from there. There'll be other people who say, right, I know that I want a Ford Fiesta or a similar type of car, and then they'll just find their way through there. So lots of different ways. But yeah, I mean, as car people, and it's an interesting thing because we talk to the manufacturers about this a lot. You know, they're really wedded to the idea that people will come to the site to look at the car, but actually, you know, people have got a ton of tabs open on their machines, looking across them all and trying to compare them. Imagine that on on Auto Trader. That's what people are doing.
Yeah, I find it fascinating. I just wonder, like, if 9 in 10 people don't know what car they're going to buy,
Not
then
exactly. No,
well,
only 1 in 10 knows the exact make and model. Yeah.
sort of the search functionality sort of isn't really important, is it, in that respect? Because they sort of need to speak to someone, you know, AI, and ask them, like, can you help guide me along this process? Is that coming? Is that next?
You wonder. It's funny actually. It's a big topic of conversation, not just at Auto Trader, but more widely. So what you've got, I mean, in the past, people would say, right, I like a car a bit like this. Talk to a friend who might know something about cars, and say, right, what else is a bit like this? What else should I be considering? Are those ones any good? That's always happened. Car reviews, of course, loads of platforms and magazines, as was, with reviews of cars. If you're in the market for one of these, then you might also consider, these sorts of things. We've obviously got them all on a platform as well. So that stuff still happens for younger type of buyers. What we're seeing is an emerging trend where, along with pretty much everything else, they just go to an AI machine and say, right, I'm interested in this. What do you think? Same as I do for holidays. They'll be going, right, I've got 3 days for a city break in Europe. I don't want anything too hot. I don't want to fly more than 2 hours from London. Where shall I go? And there's an interesting thing, right? Because back to the, how good is AI? We could, you could easily put something into the site or elsewhere that just kind of says, answer those questions. And the answers could be nonsense, really not appropriate answers. So it's easy to run into it. And we've seen retailers do this on descriptions before, just take stuff from a review. I read one last year, just to quickly go on that. This is how dangerous it is. This is why you can't run straight into it. Retailer had just sort of said, AI, write me a review of this car. The car wasn't really a very good car. Takes the text, pops it into the thing, presses submit, done, advert done. Basically, the text says, don't buy this car, it's rubbish.
Oh, God.
This is what it said in the review. So, yeah, is AI coming? Yes. Is it easy to get wrong? Yes. Should we do it really quickly? No. But, yeah, it definitely is a big topic of conversation in terms of like descriptions and searching and that sort of stuff.
And Mark, sorry, just finally, what would you? Because I've covered a lot of ground there. If there's people who want to ask you questions or any of the team, what would you say? Just like call their account manager or reach out to you on LinkedIn, or what would you say?
Either, both, whatever. It's difficult actually, because so many retailers, and there are 14,500 retailer partners that we have, and obviously there are loads of people within those. I'm not just saying that one site has got maybe 5 or 6 people or more that have got questions that they'd like to ask us or things they want to say. The account managers definitely are. It's very, very happy. Would love to hear from them if there are questions about anything that you like, don't like, or want to talk about or want to know more about. Then absolutely. We want to hear, as I said earlier on, we don't make decisions lightly, and we do it as much as we possibly can with input from partners. So the more of that we get, the better. Absolutely. Get in touch with the account person in the first instance. I'm always happy to answer questions. We've got a team of people here to help out. So yeah, absolutely. Get yourself along to our clinics, Insight Academy. If you want to learn stuff, see how to use the tools, join the webinars. There's loads of different ways to kind of ask questions, learn, and that would be my advice. But yeah, don't not do it. If you've got something you want to know or talk about, then best thing is do.
14,000 in-mail LinkedIn messages heading your way, Mark.
I need AI to sort through it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I know we've covered a lot of ground there, but we probably, John, should do stories in the last few moments we have for this podcast.
We'll be right back. Now, John, I'm really enjoying how easy it is to pay sellers on CarWow.
I presume you'd rather not pay them at all.
No, that is true, but now I can do it with CarWow Wallet. You can pay sellers, finance houses, and more instantly, literally in one click. It's secure, easy to use, and gets rid of all the pesky finance back and forth. It's a total game changer, John.
That does sound pretty good.
If you want to find out more, dealers can log on to carwow.co.uk/partners/carwow-wallet. Now, back to the podcast.
So James and I are going to run through our favourite stories of the week, and at the end, Mark gets to decide which one of us chose the best ones and who is the winner. You'll notice my backdrop has changed because I've been shuffling around this strange room trying to make sure the Wi-Fi is the best.
Yeah.
So if either of you suddenly miss bits of my sentence, that's why. But I'm sure you're not really listening anyway, James, so it's not a problem. I won last week, apparently, so I'm going to go first. And probably our biggest and perhaps for me most surprising news story of the week comes around electric cars. And it's the most surprising and annoying for me because we have spent, 9 months, longer than that probably, sat on this podcast saying, no, the government definitely won't introduce any grants.
I wrote this, John, in my Substack last week. I wrote, I finally come to the realization that I do not think we're going to get any help from the government. Literally 24 hours later, they announced this. I was like, that in terms of the worst predictions I've ever made, that has got to be number one.
Wonderful thing is as well, people are paying for your insights, James.
Sorry, I'm really sorry.
If you have subscribed to James, you should be entitled to a refund based on that information. So I'll talk. This takes a while to talk about this particular subject because it's quite complicated. But there's two flavours of grant: £3,750 off, or £1,500 off, depending on some quite peculiar categorization, I suppose you'd call it. So effectively, the government's OZEV department, or ZEZIOV, or something like that, it's their Office for Zero Emission Vehicles, is going to look at each individual car that a manufacturer applies to put through for this grant and make a judgment based on its eco-credentials in terms of, mainly, it seems to be, where it's been built. So 30% of this characterization or whatever comes from where is the car assembled. So where's the actual body in white and wheels glued on and all that sort. Don't glue wheels on. Wheels screwed on and all that sort of stuff. Where does that
screwed
happen?
on's even worse, John. Sorry, you can tell you're not an engineer, can't you?
Oh God, only on my third coffee of the day. 70% of it comes from where the battery is assembled, and I mean that's in itself a bit of a woolly bit of description, isn't it? Because like if you ask, for example, Mercedes launch I was just on, where's the battery made? They say, yes, the battery is made in Germany. Okay, yeah, but where do the cells come from? Where's the raw material come from? Blah 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 blah. Anyway, so they will look at, and good job to them to go through this level of detail. I'll tell you, they're going to assess it based on the things like, let's say a car is made in China. They will look at where the power from the grid comes from and how that is generated. So China is predominantly coal-fired, so they're not going to get a very good eco score for that Chinese-made car. Whereas if it was made in France, which is predominantly powered these days by nuclear and renewables and so on, better score. So as it stands right now, we have no idea which cars are going to be eligible for either of these two tiers. Some of them won't be eligible at all, which sounds a little bit like Chinese ones won't be getting any money off whatsoever. And some will get the much higher £3,700 grant, and some will only get the £1,500. Also, this seems to be not a tiered grant. It's not like a percentage, whereas before, the previous one, you would say it's, I don't know what it was. Was it 10% or something like that, up to a value of XYZ? And so a more expensive car up to a point got more money off. This seems to be £3,750 off, regardless of the cost of the car, as long as it's under £37,000. On to my next point, for anyone still awake. there's a £37,000 limit for the RRP of the car, but according to the legislation that I've been through, it's more around the battery size. So if the new Nissan Leaf comes out with I don't know what it is, 60 kilowatt hour battery, and the SE model starts at £36,000, thumbs up. But there's also a really posh one that's £42,000. As long as there is one available with that battery size for under the amount, you also get the £3,700 off for the one that's over £37,000. So it is a slightly baffling thing to get your head around. And this is what we have heard from dealers who are just thoroughly confused with what actually is going to happen. I mean, James, you've been speaking to a few, so perhaps you're better placed.
When
to
you
talk about
actually hear what you've just said, and actually like the detail of this grant, what sounded like a fantastic move from this government is just, it is horrendously complicated. I've had numerous phone calls from dealers, a lot of them yesterday, saying, "Yeah, you might have thought this grant was going live today, but you find me a manufacturer that knows what is going on. You find me anybody who can do that deal, because they do not exist." They have made this thing ridiculously overcomplicated. There is no need for all of that absolute horse crap that you have just talked about. What this should have been is very, very simple. It should have been electric cars under £37,000, 10% VAT rate, which is exactly the same deal. That would have been simple to implement. It would have been very, very easy to sort out. Everybody would know where they stand. And if you don't want to include Chinese cars, just say anything Chinese manufactured, not included. But instead,
Well,
they've come.
I think is this a way to avoid the backlash? A bit like Trump with his tariffs on China. Of course, China react. If you do it in this way, you're saying no, it's not about China. It's nothing to do with China. It's simply about how they're manufactured. We're just trying to be really green. And conveniently enough, probably I would be really, really surprised if cars like the Nissan Leaf that are built in the UK and battery assembled in the UK don't get the full whack. I reckon that's going to happen. So, from that point of view, I think it's good because I not to get really nationalist, because it's not really me, but you can't really start giving government money away on cars made. It will start giving government money away and then favour cars made in other countries over the ones that are made in this country, because that's sort of what happened with the scrappage scheme, wasn't it? They just blindly went, "Oh yeah, have some money off," and then suddenly Hyundai i20s and i10s started appearing all over the country because people wanted to get the maximum bang for their buck. So I kind of support its logic from that point of view. It's just that this is very early days, and at the minute, there's just going to be a long wait, I suspect, while every single car manufacturer applies for this grant. Well, every single car manufacturer with a car under 37-ish grand applies for this grant. And then eventually, hopefully, there'll just be a nice long list where you can go, right, Nissan Leaf has got this much money off, Renault 5 has got this much money off, and so on and so forth.
Why launch it on July the 16th if you can't actually launch it on July the 16th? That they should have said this is coming, then worked out what cars are going to be eligible, John, and then launch it. It's just at the moment there's so much confusion out there. This is the other problem is you've got people who have placed orders who don't know whether their car is going to be eligible. So some of the dealers I'm talking to are saying they're having phone calls from customers saying, "What do I do? Cancel my order? Wait to pick it up? Is it going to be eligible?" And these dealers are saying, "I have no idea." The manufacturers have no idea. This is the problem. There's so much confusion out there with this plan. It's not smooth. And what we needed is for this to be simple and easy to understand so people could take advantage of it. Because I applaud them. It's a good idea. It was needed. We've been banging on about it for ages. It's what this industry needed. But it's come out in this complicated fashion, which is very hard to understand. I mean, Mark, what are you hearing from people similar to us?
Yeah, same as you. We've heard we've said for ages, haven't we, that cost is the big driver, and if we can get over that barrier, then loads of more people will be interested, whether it be new or used. Great news, as this has come around. Actually, we did see yesterday on the platform a big surge in inquiries on electric cars. So we saw it jump up quite a bit, actually, to its highest point this year. Inquiries on new cars. We also saw a bit of a bump on used. So immediately gets in the news. and then you see this uptick. But yeah, absolutely. We did a little video yesterday. It was a lot more vague than John's description because I didn't want to go near any of the complexity. But yeah, it all needs to be figured out. I mean, if you're a manufacturer sitting there at the moment, I mean, I was at Hyundai actually when the scrappage scheme came out. So those i10s and i20s, that was a bit of it. But we knew it was coming, or we gambled that it was coming. We got the stock in, we had the communications materials ready. The government said yes, and we were in business. And it took some of the others, the manufacturers, 2 weeks to sign up, by which time we'd taken 1,500 orders.
Yes.
Now, really, what you'd want now is everybody to have been, lined up. They consulted on it back in, February, March, April. Get it ready. If you want it to be successful, then it's got to be executed really, really well. So I'm hopeful that the list comes out soon. Everybody knows where they are and we can get going.
Yeah, definitely. John, shall I move us on?
Very quickly, yes.
I will move us on. So, let me just talk to you about Citroen and DS models and the airbag safety recall, because it has sort of dominated the headlines this week. And the story that I'm going to go with is the fact that a warning was issued to car dealers not to sell their Citroen or DS3 models that have those problem airbags. So I spoke to Nona Bokis from Logistics. She's the head of legal services there, and she explained to me that dealers need to be really careful of this, because if they're selling these cars that haven't been fixed yet, then her advice is hold off, wait until they're fixed, or sell them as spares or repairs. Now, there are a huge number of these cars out there. We spoke to Stellantis, and they said there's 120,000 cars affected. 21,000 of them have so far been sorted, but there's still 99,000 or so out there that are waiting to have this problem fixed. And there will be a lot of those on dealer forecourts. There'll be a lot of them that customers are wanting to sell to dealers, which they're really going to struggle to do on the likes of Carwow and Motorway. And there's lots of them on dealer forecourts that they really probably shouldn't be selling. The issue with this is it's slightly confused, because Stellantis are the ones who've issued this stop drive notice. That's a very rare thing. It hasn't really happened before. It's very, very unusual. They've done it off the back of this serious accident that happened in France, and a lady was sadly killed off the back of the back of this airbag problem. It was a recall that was already taken place, and they were working through it, but now they've said don't drive your cars. So off the back of that, you've got these huge number out there that need to be fixed, but dealers were sort of like, what do you do? I mean, it's not actually an MOT failure. So normally that is the test of roadworthiness, isn't it? An MOT test. But these cars will pass an MOT. So there are some in the trade who are thinking, well, actually, it's fine to sell these cars. However, logistics are saying probably not. You should probably hold off. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to sell one, because if a problem happened after that, even if you knew that there was a fault with the airbag, potentially, it's going to come back and bite you, isn't it? I mean, that's really a risk I wouldn't want to take. I thought it was interesting this week. Auto Trader has started flagging at the top of the adverts of these cars that they might be an affected vehicle. So those ones, I mean, there's a picture in our story of being sold by a used car dealer, and at the top of that advert it says this car may be the subject to a safety recall. So clearly, Auto Trader's worried about it just as much as we are. But this problem is big, John. It's because it's taken these dealers a long time to work through these problems. That is a huge number of cars, and you've got to remember, this is not these workshops weren't sat around doing nothing. They were busy servicing and doing MOT work and running their normal businesses. They're now going to put a lot of that aside, work extra shifts to get these problem airbags sorted. The update today, I'm just sort of wrapping two stories into one, is that Peugeot dealers have now joined forces with those Citroen and DS dealers insofar as they can do the recall work as well. So consumers can not only just book them at Citroen DS, they can also ring a Peugeot dealer and have that work done. It takes about an hour and a half to do. The dealers that I've spoken to have said it's put them under immense pressure to get this work done. I mean, you can imagine there's a huge number of customers out there who are very scared to drive their vehicles. I mean, we've seen it, haven't we, in our inbox? You've got customers saying, well, I've been told I'm not allowed to drive this car, but the dealer's telling me that I can drive it to to the showroom, to the workshop to have that work done. I mean, if I owned one of these, you would be worried, wouldn't you? I mean, I know it sounds a little bit over the top, but I think you were saying to me yesterday the accident that killed this poor lady was only at 20 miles an hour. So those sort of bumps can easily happen, can't they? And would you risk it? Then you've got the questions from some consumers saying, well, if I can't use my car, why am I being compensated? There's already lawyers gearing up for a compensation claim on this. Do Citroen, Stellantis pay for hire cars? Do they pay for the public transport? These out-of-pocket expenses that customers are racking up. I mean, it is a mess. I mean, this is a big story, and it's affecting a huge number of people on the trade side. And those poor consumers in the cars. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think this one's going to go away.
I think the Peugeot dealer network getting involved is helpful, but the numbers are still not on their side, are they? As you say, 120,000 cars between, I don't know how many Citroen dealers there are in the UK, probably about 120 or 130. So you do the maths on that, 1,000 cars roughly per dealer to get through would have just been impossible. I mean, surely it makes sense to spread it a bit further as well, like across other Stellantis dealer, service departments. Surely the Vauxhall can get involved, and Fiat, and so on and so forth. I don't know what became of this. There was talk of the RAC sending out mobile mechanics to deal with it as well. I don't know.
I think that is happening.
Right. But yeah, it is a big thing, and I do hope this is the last of the airbag Takata saga, because these cars were pretty much manufactured. I mean, Takata went out of business in about 2017, so there are cars built after this airbag manufacturer went bust because of the recall that happened in 2015. So presumably, Citroen might have had an inkling that at some stage they were going to have to replace these airbags later in the life of the cars.
Well, can I just ask Mark, John, why Auto Trader flagged these? What was there obviously was some thinking behind that. That Auto Trader was a little bit concerned that consumers weren't getting that information. Is that what it was?
Yes, I don't know too much about it. I'll be honest with you, but I mean, we all not many stop drives are there. Not many stop drive examples that we can all of us think of, and I think when you get one, there's like a duty, isn't there, a duty of care? And also, if you're an independent retailer who's got a car which is XYZ old, and you've got all these other things that you need to do, and you're selling one of these cars, then it might be something that might pass you by, if you, for whatever reason. So yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I think when it comes to stop drive and you've got consumers looking at these cars, and you just kind of go, look, this could be affected. Go to this page, find out. That's the sort of intervention. I feel really sorry for Stellantis actually, because it's only a couple of years, isn't it, when they had all the delivery problems. Do you remember they were the big logistical stuff a couple of years ago, and before that, of course, they had the same things as everyone else on wiring looms and semiconductors and COVID, and it's just been boom, boom, boom. So yeah, I mean, really tough times for those networks, definitely.
I've heard a lot of dealers saying to me this week that they think it's an opportunity. There's obviously the trade are going to be right at the bottom of having these airbag recalls sorted, but if they can store them for 6 months, stash them away, they are going for pennies at auctions at the moment. So there's probably is an opportunity, and this is what I love about the industry. There's always those entrepreneurial dealers out there who will make hay while there are some problems elsewhere. Yeah. Oh dear. Anyway, we've got 2 stories there, John, but that's probably it's going to be yours or mine, isn't it? I suppose in this podcast.
Pretty much. I will just squeeze in one more thing, which is
that's cheating.
Talk about Podcast Live, James.
Good idea.
Thank you. So this story came out slightly after our podcast last week, but Polestar boss Matt Galvin has joined our lineup for Car Dealer Podcast Live, which is happening in September at a very nice little intimate hotel in Oxfordshire, which claims to be in Abingdon. Really, it's in Didcot, but we won't argue about that. But yeah, so he will be on our panel alongside various other people who we are yet to announce, but head down into the show notes below for 10% off with the code Picanto and book your tickets.
Well done, John. What a plug. I mean, that was a professional plug.
Thank you very much. So we've reached the end of our time. So Mark, before I ask your verdict, Oasis or Blur?
Oasis.
Oh,
We're obviously
dear.
we're in Manchester.
This is going to go
I
poorly.
couldn't leave the room if I said blur, could I?
No, definitely not.
No Oasis for me.
So are there any other stories you think we should have talked about this week? Not that we had time to do it anyway.
It's been a big week, hasn't it? The EV one's the big one. There's stuff around JLR this morning, which we touched on before we got on. But those are, I mean, yeah, definitely. As you say, those two stories are absolutely huge in different ways for the industry. Do I pick? Is it for me to pick a winner now?
Yes.
It is.
Oh, amazing! Right. In that case, I'm definitely going, John, with you. That's the big news. I've got a couple of reasons. Firstly, it is brilliant news. We've been banging on about prices for ages and hoping the government would do something and come to the party with a carrot rather than the stick that we've all been talking about for such a long time. So I'm really, really pleased to see it. I hope it pans out the way we'd like it to, that demand increases and we do then start to accelerate. But really, the big reason why I think I would go with you, John, is because it what James told us earlier on. He wrote in his Substack that the government won't come to the market with any money, and they did. So I think that's brilliant. Fantastic.
They've just done it to spite me, haven't they?
Yeah.
Well, you're welcome, motoring industry.
Yeah, Heidi Alexander is at the Transport Secretary. Has been sat there reading a Substack thinking, wow, now's the time. Let's get it out. Oh, lovely. Well, thank you.
Well done, John.
That's
We're having a little break now, aren't we? Because it's like holiday season, so we're going to have a couple of weeks off. So sorry about that, podcast listeners, but we will be back in the not too distant future.
Yes, we literally will not be back next week because you'll be on a boat, some sort of ferry. I think Joe describes it to me as going to around the bottom of Spain. And I will be putting my belongings in a transit van and moving house. So, and no one else is around either. So there's literally no one to do a podcast next week. So there we are. But we'll be back after that on, I don't know what it would be, August the something, August the 1st, possibly, for another episode. So make sure you're subscribed so you can be notified when that one eventually goes live. Thank you to Mark for joining us today and for putting up with us, taking up space in your lovely building here. And thank you as well to James for being wrong on his weekly Substack. If you want to check out the stories we mentioned today, yes, James?
Just before we leave, can I just show that those people who watch this on YouTube, there is a mic here right next to my desk that's got like a little paging thing on it, and I've wanted for the entire podcast just to press it. But Mark, I'm worried that if I do it, do I just talk to John or do I talk to the entire Auto Trader workforce?
Everybody, we'll all be going for lunch.
Okay, I won't press that. I definitely won't press that. Sorry, John, you can end now.
For more of this chaos, tune in for our next episode in a few weeks' time. If you want to check out the stories mentioned today, take a look in the show notes below or head to cardealermagazine.co.uk and don't forget to have a look for podcast live tickets. Thanks for listening and goodbye.